It's Belgium. It's 1815, and everything is made of mud, smoke, and questionable leadership. This is the Battle of Waterloo. It's loud, it's messy, it's historical. But what if someone rolled in with a modern howitzer? Yeah, what if Napoleon, instead of yelling at underpaid soldiers and charging with horses, had access to 21st century artillery? That's what we're figuring out today. What happens when you drop modern firepower into a battlefield full of muskets and men in tight pants? But first, let's talk about what a modern artillery piece actually is. Because spoiler, it's not a big musket. Let's take the M777 howitzer, a standard in the US military. This thing can fire a shell over 20 miles away. It weighs around 4,200 kilograms, which is roughly the same as Napoleon's ego. It's operated by a crew of around 8 soldiers, and it fires 155mm shells that can destroy tanks, buildings, and your sense of safety. With GPS-guided rounds, like the Excalibur, it can land within 2 meters of its target, from 25 miles away. Compare that to the French cannons at Waterloo. Those could shoot maybe 600 meters if you were lucky, hit nothing, and mostly created noise and hope. Okay, back to Belgium. It's the morning of June 18th. Napoleon is doing his usual thing, pointing at maps and looking intense. Across the field is the Duke of Wellington, who's mostly just trying not to get crushed by cannonballs or bad decisions. Now imagine if, instead of lining up his cannon crews like dominoes, Napoleon had a battery of modern howitzers dug into the ridge behind his infantry. Not only would he not need to get close, he'd be obliterating British troops from behind the hills. The moment Wellington sets up his infantry lines, gone. The moment the British cavalry starts charging, also gone. And the best part? Wellington wouldn't even know where the shells were coming from. These artillery systems can fire from behind cover, adjust elevation automatically, and rain chaos with terrifying speed. By the time a British scout says, "I think we're being shelled," half the army would already be in the air. And the French? They could sit comfortably, sip wine, and reload. But don't worry, it gets worse. Let's talk numbers. The French had around 240 cannons at Waterloo. A modern artillery unit could outmatch all of them with just 10 pieces. That's how far the technology has come. And no, it's not just about power. It's about rate of fire. The M777 can fire 5 rounds per minute, and each of those rounds is more powerful than anything on the field in 1815. So in just 2 minutes, one howitzer could do more damage than an entire French battery could in half an hour. And don't even ask what happens when you give Napoleon satellite reconnaissance and drone surveillance. He'd probably win in under an hour, retire early, and open a vineyard. But there's more to this mess than just boom. Because if you thought the battlefield couldn't get dumber, wait until we talk about horses versus shrapnel. Let's talk cavalry. In 1815, horses were tanks with legs. They pulled cannons, carried soldiers, and charged into enemy lines like muscular lawn mowers. Every general dreamed of a perfect cavalry charge. Now imagine those horses facing off against modern shrapnel artillery. Bad news, the horses would last about 10 seconds. Modern artillery doesn't fire cute metal balls. It fires high explosive shells that burst mid-air, spraying jagged metal at speeds over 1,000 meters per second. That's faster than anything with hooves, or hope. You don't get a warning. You don't see it coming. You just aren't there anymore. So yeah, the French cavalry, toast. British cavalry, also toast. And the Prussian cavalry, riding in late like the cool kids? Sorry, still toast. And this is assuming they even make it near the fight. Because modern artillery doesn't need to be on the battlefield. It fires from 20 miles away. The people launching it could be sitting on folding chairs eating grapes. Let's talk teamwork. In Napoleon's time, you fired, waited 60 seconds, and hoped you hit something. With modern artillery, there's radar, drones, satellites, computers, weather sensors, apps. Napoleon would be watching the battlefield like it's a video game. He could zoom in on enemy positions, swipe left on British formations, and press delete on anyone he didn't like. Meanwhile, Wellington's sending messages on horseback, literally, with paper. Napoleon would know where the British are, where they're going, what they had for breakfast. Wellington, still waiting for a sweaty man on a horse to hand him a note that says, "We're under attack." Oops. Fair? Absolutely not. Let's talk timing. Waterloo was all about timing. Napoleon waited for the ground to dry. His reinforcements were slow. The British held on just long enough for the Prussians to show up. But with modern artillery, there is no waiting. You set up, you press a button, you destroy. In real history, the French opened fire around 11:30 a.m. In this version, Napoleon could end the battle before brunch. British cannons? Tiny, loud, mostly useless. They fire at what they can see. Modern artillery? It fires over hills, over forests, through fog. It doesn't need to see the enemy. It just needs coordinates. You get spotted, you get deleted. Now let's bring in the fun part, logistics. In 1815, roads were garbage, mud, ruts, and sadness. Cannons got stuck. Wagons flipped. Soldiers walked slower than snails in boots. Modern artillery? It's built for bad roads. It comes in trucks. It flies in helicopters. It sets up in minutes. You could drop a modern artillery unit into a muddy Belgian field and have it flatten the enemy before a single French soldier even finishes loading his musket. And that musket? Oh yeah, let's talk firepower. In 1815, a soldier with a musket might get off 2 shots per minute, if he's lucky, and calm, and not being shot at. Modern artillery can fire 5 rounds per minute, per unit, and each shell has the power of a dozen old-school cannons. So one modern howitzer can output the same firepower as an entire battery of Napoleonic cannons in a fraction of the time, with perfect aim. Let's do the math. If Napoleon had just 10 modern howitzers, he'd match or outgun the firepower of his 240 historical cannons. And then some. Wellington's army wouldn't even know where the explosions were coming from. He'd be standing in smoke, saying, "Did we just lose 2,000 men, or did the fog get louder?" Now, let's talk about the Prussians. In real life, they showed up in the late afternoon, saving the day for the British. In this scenario, they'd be walking in, happy and hopeful, and then boom. The sky opens, the ground shakes, and modern artillery turns them into historical trivia. Napoleon wouldn't even need to fight them. He'd just mark a point on a map and let science do the rest. And if you're wondering, what about counterattacks? There wouldn't be any. You can't counter something you can't see, or reach, or survive. By the end of the day, the battlefield would be full of stunned survivors holding muskets, looking up at craters the size of houses. And Napoleon? Probably napping in his tent with tea and biscuits, saying things like, "Why didn't I have this in Russia?" Let's review. If Napoleon had modern artillery at Waterloo, he would have fired from 20 miles away, hit targets with 2-meter accuracy, wiped out cavalry before it even charged, outpaced British communication, blocked the Prussians with a few clicks, ended the entire war before dinner. No wonder historians don't like these kinds of questions. They break the whole timeline. Instead of being defeated, Napoleon becomes unstoppable. Instead of exile, he gets awards. Instead of being short and moody, he's short, moody, and terrifying. So yeah, modern artillery at Waterloo, it wouldn't just change history. It would erase it and replace it with a smoking field and a very smug French emperor. And now the real question. If you could drop one modern weapon into any old-timey battle, which one would you pick? And how badly would it ruin everything? Subscribe PLS.